Books, if you've read them, you know they're pretty great. If you haven't, I'm sure you've heard of them. A Series of Unfortunate Events is strangely still one of my favourite book series. If you don't know, A Series of Unfortunate Events is a series about 3 orphans, the Baudelaires, who are left in the care of numerous support systems and guardians that ultimately fail them, some maliciously, some carelessly, and some systemically. The Baudelaire orphans learn to trust only in themselves and sometimes in the select few good adults they find, but ultimately these good adults are powerless to defend them against the injustice they face. While the subject matter is generally quite dark, it is an absurdist comedy that illustrates how marginalized children are by the foster care system. And while I cannot say that the series is hopeful, I can say that it highlights meaning in the small moments of comfort that we all experience from time to time. But today we aren't playing a game based on a book. This ain't no Witcher. This is a game based on a movie based on a book, truly the wonders of the 21st century. It is a 13-book series with The Secret Book the 14th in the back of the last, and it has been adapted into live media twice. Once in 2017 with the Netflix adaptation, or wherever you want to watch it, and the 2004 movie starring Jim Carrey as Count Olaf and Emily Browning, who went on to make one of the most deeply disturbing and beautiful films I've ever watched, and one of the most has Bjork's Army of Me in its soundtrack films. Watch either at your own peril. This game is a movie tie-in that actually retains its cast from the movie, and that's kind of a big deal, with the exceptions from side characters and of course Lemony Snicket, who is played by Tim Curry, as opposed to Jude Law from the film. FYI, in the Netflix series he is voiced by Patrick Warburton, and he delivers.
If the world ever feels confusing, as if people are having secret meetings to plot against you behind your back, it's useful to know they are.
I'm Evil Phil, and I'm going to be playing some of the retro games I never got to play growing up. Could the real series of unfortunate events be the friends we made along the way? That's feckin' bleak. Or could this series of unfortunate events really be a series of fortunate minigames in disguise? Let's find out together. The main menu is kinda cool, actually. It's inside Lemony Snicket's office and immediately tells us what the game is about. Orphans. This game imparts the lore of the Baudelaires through these animatics, voiced over by Tim Curry, and it all seems to be inspired by Brett Halquist's original illustrations of the books. I quite like this. We learn the Baudelaires are now orphans and must live with Count Olaf, an actor who feigns to be well read, but is somewhat spiteful when Klaus corrects him. Olaf pushes Mr. Poe out the door and gives us our first chore, kill the rats, which I am not a fan of.
Dogs are to Stephen what rats are to me.
But I guess we need to kill rats now. Violet Baudelaire is pretty smart, and she is an excellent inventor. She invents us a way to kill rats using a spring, a broom, a coffee can, and of course that boxing glove. We can switch between Klaus and Violet. Now Klaus is pretty smart, he is an excellent reader and remembers exactly what he has read. He reads the room, finds a box, and remembers we can move it to jump up and get that boxing glove. Neat. Actually, Tim Curry tells us what to do, but we can imagine it relates back to books. Now the items we need to collect are on the right hand side here. We are able to leave through this door, but I noticed a hole in the wall here that appears to lead to more, well, room. This is maybe important later. Beside the coffee can, we can see a locket containing a cameo of the Baudelaire parents. I really like this because it means that their health isn't physical, it's emotional. They're a bond to each other and to the home that they once found happiness in. Health is located in the top right hand corner of the screen next to the portrait of the child we are currently playing as, and please admire these paintings. We can backtrack to find the spring. Now as we investigate this door where presumably the broom is, we venture into one of the weirder aspects of this game. Now, Sunny Baudelaire is pretty smart. She has her own language that her siblings can understand, she can understand the people around her, and is very conscious of her surroundings. She has sharp teeth, we'll get to that later, and she is small, so small in fact that we can shove her little self into this vent. This small child has to do a sliding minigame, jumping to avoid obstacles. It's actually pretty fun. And once that spinal compression nightmare is over, Sunny can use her teeth to bite through this pipe. Now, this game is anachronistic as fuck, so I don't know if it has lead in it, maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. Potential carcinogens aside, Sunny bites through this panel keeping the door shut and we can enter. We find a puzzle piece, this will be relevant later, and then we get the broom. Once we get the final item, we can construct a brilliant bopper. You do build it in the sense that you attach components, but you cannot fail. You have to turn the object around as you build it, and you can only attempt to attach components if it's going to be in the correct place, so there's literally no fail state. This is less of a puzzle and more of a narrative device, a way to say, I did this. The Brilliant Bopper is actually a weapon for Klaus, and it will serve as our melee damage dealer. We can use it to kill the rats, which I don't like doing, and we can also use it to destroy these pots to get puzzle pieces. I'm not saying Klaus destroying Olaf's property justifies the abuse at the hands of the Count, but it's not a great look. We do see some items that are clearly used as components for a combination later on, but for now they're just set dressing. In the main hall, we get a cutscene where a package informs us that Olaf is being pursued by someone, and that they are collecting evidence of his bad behaviors. That's where our puzzle pieces come in. We can collect 25 of them for some proof that Olaf is a bad man, and yeah, this does not affect the story in any way and is entirely optional. I get a bit careless and start randomly attacking some rats and end up taking damage for it.
The glamour? Did that rat just jump or did somebody throw that at me?
They don't really have much of an attack animation and they're so small that sometimes you take damage when you can't even see them. In the kitchen, there's an infestation of rats and we do some defestating, a word which here means squishing rats and covering the kitchen in rat blood. We see that despite the fact we only need 25 puzzle pieces, there's actually more than we needed, and here I assumed they acted more like a currency, except that's wrong. There are in fact 75 in a mansion for 3 different pieces of evidence. We killed the rats, but a note from the count tells us that we need to take care of some spiders too. Also, Olaf wrote the last part as singing.
I am rehearsing and will not tolerate interruption!
To kill the spiders, we need to make a weapon for Violet. We can collect the fan component here by breaking this bottom box to free the top box so we can push the top box over, climb up it, and collect it. I feel like we didn't need to break the bottom box, but it's a good layering of game mechanics, so I'm gonna let it slide. We continue and have a boss fight against Fernald, the hook-handed man. He throws barrels at us and we must dodge them to reach him and smack him. Midway through we do get the funnel we need before continuing to defeat the disabled man, then move this bookcase to find an inflatable pool toy. Before we return to the kitchen we check out the secret room behind this amazing painting, and it's a murder shack, please leave. Once back in the kitchen, we have to fight the bald man for his fork, or pork. He wants to eat in peace, so of course he throws pasta at us 3 times in succession, leaving it open for a brilliant bopper, and repeats this pattern until we deny the hairless man of his fork and create the fruit flinger for Violet. I don't understand how this works, but I trust Violet. Now the spider is a bit more mechanically interesting than Fernald or the bald man. She, yes, the spider is a woman, women can be spiders, periodically comes down from her web, attacks 3 times, returns up to the web, summons more spiders, then comes back down to repeat. Most importantly, as she loses health, the number of projectiles she fires and spiders she summons increases by 1. It can be difficult to hit her as she is small and our fruit flinger flings fruit in an arc, but we get the job done with minimal effort. Count Olaf moves the goalpost further away and now we have to cook him and his troop food. Without a recipe, we make our way to Justice Strauss. Now, she can't just give us the book we need, God forbid. We gotta earn it. We have to clean up her books in her liable library.
Books? As if my day couldn't get any worse. Now we have books?
And we have to return all the books back to their alcoves by matching the name with the alcove's design. To make this a little bit more difficult, we are only able to hold 1 book at a time, and we have to beat the clock to do it. Violet says this was a game that Klaus used to play with his dad, but it sounds like it would create an anxiety disorder centered around cleaning. Once we've done that, Strauss says if we can make our way up to her cookbook past all the construction, we are welcome to have it. Sunny will have to climb up, but she's not very good at jumping, so we have to invent her a jetpack, using a book strap, this pull cord, and this fire extinguisher. We create the baby booster, another alliteration of bees, but desperate times and all that. Now, sometimes, like now, Sunny can do some 2D precarious platforming, defying doubt with her boosted jumps and sharp teeth. Sunny does the dance and we get the book. We finish collecting all the puzzle pieces for the next clue and get back to the manor. Back in the mansion we have to get to work making this food, but we can't reach the switch to open the pantry's door for feck's sake. Maybe if we had a tripod, a piano wire, and some snowshoes we could reach it. The snowshoes are easy enough, but the piano wire is going to be tough, except it isn't. Klaus read about these pianos and they explode if you play the right melody. Yes! We proceed to play a rhythm minigame, with each round the piano vibrates more and more violently. It's quite fun and very tense, ending with an explosive triumph. We return to the telescope we saw earlier, and proceed to knock the gender fluid out of the henchperson of indeterminate gender. I actually think it might just be one of the painted ladies, but I wanted to include the henchperson of indeterminate gender anyway.
I lied.
Our prize is the steady stilts, and we can finally make our way to the cellar. This is some basement, hey. Klaus sees some green goop and is immediately like, that's tetrachlorophenyl sodium hydroxide. Which is weird that he knows that, but it's also incorrect. It would be tetrachlorophenyl sodium, an industrial food preservative suspended in water. Probably, I just looked that up. Well, we still need food, so we pick up some noodles, then Violet stilts through steam to find some anchovies. We use this turned handle to drain the goop, allowing Klaus to pass, but this spawns in a bunch of rats. This is a little bit frustrating on the surface because it looks like Klaus needs to fight infinitely respawning aggressive rats, but you can actually just avoid them, so it's not that big a deal. In the next area, Klaus can drown some rats, get some garlic, and wait so that Violet can stilt on over and put Sunny in some perilous pipes. Sunny can evade some steam, kill some rats, chew more copper, do a little dance, get some tomatoes so that Violet can get some olives, and a cutscene informs us that Olaf intentionally releases spiders.
To what end? To what end?
I'd say rude, but that actually was a pretty good boss fight. We serve dinner to an ungrateful Olaf who throws us into a room and locks the door. We try to escape by climbing onto the scaffolding outside. Klaus goes on ahead to murk some peons, he is a child no longer, and avoids detection in this stealth minigame. We lower the elevator and Violet and Sunny join us in Olaf's room. We find a skeleton key so we can open the locked chests of rooms we've seen so far, and oh yeah, we need to pick it up first. We learn that Olaf has some dubious papers about children, death and inheritance. We make our way down to the dining hall with this information, but the phone isn't working. There is a hatch under the fireplace, but we can't open it. But Violet has a diagram. We need rope, firewood, and a bowling ball. In the parlor, we meet and fight the two painted women. They dance around the room and occasionally stop. When they do, one will pelt projectiles at you while the other is under a spotlight and vulnerable to flung fruit. With little health, they quickly go down and we find the bowling ball. Now that's sexy. Now we can't just pick the ball out of the statue's hands using the stilts, we have to smack it with the brilliant bopper, and that's fine, it breaks the statue and that's a good thing. With the bowling ball in tow, we grab the rope from these curtains and make our way upstairs. But I get bum rushed by this peon, and when he catches me, he just dances. We murder more less than minimum wage workers and find a secret room we saw at the start of the game. It's a nice full circle. We find the remaining puzzle pieces and find the last piece of evidence and proceed to open a steel hatch using physics.
What do you mean? What?
Tim Curry informs us that we got caught by Olaf and now it's out of the frying pan and into the hot car. We have to hit a switch so that the incoming train doesn't kill us, and I am always saying this. For this minigame we have to press X at the right time when the elf head overlaps with the switch. It gets progressively faster and it actually gets pretty tense in the last segment. Olaf gets caught trying to kill us and we are then transferred into the care of Uncle Monty, and he wastes no time in wanting to take us to Peru. But he wants us to prepare with a trial by fire, or by reptile. We need to collect trophies, and with vague instructions we activate a watering system to clear some platforms before we move on to the next section. This requires us to jump further than we were able to, so of course Violet tells us we need a battery, some shoelaces and 2 propellers. We collect all 4 and craft the levitating loafers. With the LLs putting a lift in our step, we can begin climbing this tree, which will also include killing frogs as well as platforming, but with some patience amid the pot breaking we get our first trophy. Monty introduced us to the perilous plants that he had shipped in from Borneo. They're not important right now, so we'll make our way to the Grim River. We can't make it across the river as the bridge is up, but luckily we can endanger Sunny. Like actually we endanger Sunny. She can be squished, poisoned or drowned here. Also, this baby is hella swole. She dances and her siblings get to cross the river. Monty is elated that we have received a second trophy and celebrates by having us kill wasps. They explode when they sting according to Klaus, but we can stand still, fling fruit at them until they stop buzzing and we earn our 3rd trophy. In order to win the 4th trophy, we have to lower its cage. Violet has a plan how we can do this though. We need to use the perilous plants. So the schematic isn't exactly clear on this, but we move the plant pots into place and place the seeds in them, and then step 3 is put Sunny in the wall. No, you couldn't have just tossed a cup of water on the 4th one and skipped all of that? Sure. And what's our reward for the final trophy? That's right, an Italian man, Stefano. Except it's not, it's Count Olaf. He threatens us before walking off with an oblivious Uncle Monty to the reptile room, locking the door behind them. We need to find another way into the reptile room. Once we walk out to the grounds, a note from Uncle Monty tells us to pack up some snakes for the reptile room before we go to Peru, but Klaus isn't too happy about touching a snake, so we need to collect a screwdriver, a garden hose, and a lawnmower bag, upgrading the fruit flinger with the reptile retriever attachment. We use it to suck up the first snake, and it just disappears without me ever having seen it outside the cage. I got confused and tried entering into the hedge maze east to confirm that we already picked it up. We did. The maze itself involves switching between Violet and Klaus and using their unique traversal mechanics, collecting snakes as we go. finally ending with another opportunity to endanger Sonny Baudelaire. This is another sliding puzzle, unlike the other ones, it handles pretty well and it's super fun. But there's these giant thorns, and they really don't have a consistent size for this child, do they? She's either a regular sized baby or she's feckin' Thumbelina. In The West of the Hedge Mage, it follows the same structure as the last. We switch between characters, Violet picks up snakes, and there's a lot more hedge people to fight. At the last point, there's a button that Klaus needs to jump and land on, and we cannot switch back to Violet until Klaus is back safely. It's kinda cute. Upon collecting all the snakes, we have our first boss fight in a while. Klaus immediately has to put some frogs on the endangered list, and then we have to go fight the bald man, who, since losing his spaghetti, has gone full cultural appropriative and become a snake charmer. He summons snakes from our reptile retriever and attacks us with music. Violet must retrieve her snakes, and once we have, the bald man will begin teleporting to different points in the arena and summon frogs. At this point we can pummel him with Klaus, and the bald man will repeat this process 2 more times, increasing the number of summons by 1 with every cycle. Once the snake charmer is out of the job, we gain Uncle Monty's key and finally reach the reptile room. Over in the reptile room, we meet the incredibly deadly viper, one of the friendliest creatures in the animal kingdom, and we have to place all the retrieved snakes back in their cages. Every time you do, it plays this sound. Once we have snuggled up all the snakes, we can collect some evidence that Stefano is actually Olaf in disguise. On the way, we find the secret attached to the snake effigy, and then we make our way down the hall. Fernald is up to his old dirty tricks and is pelting us with barrels. After we make short work of him, we can collect the second secret in this loft. A painted woman is in the guest room and she dances and sprays perfume, which isn't exactly dangerous, but you can't be having a conflicting scent profile. Best avoid the attacks and pelt her with fruit. In the room we find Olaf's trunk, but it's locked, so by combining a set of tweezers, a spool, and a paintbrush, we can create the lucky lockpick. Now, if you're expecting the lockpicking minigame to be a memory game where you have to remember button prompts in a certain order, what's wrong with you? Like, you were absolutely correct, I'm not faulting you there, but it's weird that that's where your mind went first. The lockpicking does get progressively harder, but nowhere near unmanageable. We open the trunk and discover the proof that Stefano is indeed Count Olaf. Unfortunately, by the time we found the evidence, Uncle Monty was already dead, claimed by Stefano to be killed by the incredibly deadly viper. But that doesn't make sense, the incredibly deadly viper is one of the friendliest and least deadly creatures in the animal kingdom.
To what end? To what end?
While Stefano is lying through his allegedly Italian teeth, Sonny climbs into the incredibly deadly viper's cage, which in-game looks like this.
Let me tell you something. I know a snake bite when I see one. I am a world-renowned expert in snake bite. Yes.
Why is she up in the rafters? Why are the rafters literally just swinging steel beams? This poor child.
It was Dr. Mud's granddad's dream to take the children to the river, and it would be a darn shame for them not to go.
Sonny finally reaches the incredibly deadly viper, revealing that Stefano is indeed Count Olaf. Upon finding the last puzzle piece, it was here in the very first Sonny platformer, we unlocked the final secret of the reptile room in the incredibly deadly viper's cage. With Uncle Monty dead and Count Olaf once again on the run, we are brought by Poe to Lake Lachrymos to live with our Aunt Josephine. Now, Aunt Josephine is panphobic, which you might think is similar to biphobic, but they are 2 very different things. One is a vague and persistent dread of some unknown evil, and the other is panphobic. Now, as is to be expected, we are immediately given chores to do by our new guardian. We need to collect supplies, however, Count Olaf appears again disguised as Captain Cham, a grammar-obsessed one-legged fisherman. Aunt Josephine is immediately smitten, a word which here means she takes Captain Cham back to her place to get some while she leaves the children in her care alone in a new town with no adult supervision. Speaking of getting some, Count Julio Cham gives us a bag of peppermints for our long day of errands. As soon as we get here, we get to explore and find some cucumbers, which we basically steal. Some limes, flim-flam by us yet again. We attempt to pilfer these wind chimes, but the bald man and his anchor get in our way. We pummel him before opening up the secret area behind, get this, an anchor. While purloining some bread, a painted lady dances and tosses a few rolls. We thank her with some rotten fruit before attempting a heist and some grammar books. But Fernald beat us to it. He has the books hoisted on a crane and we can't move it closer without hitting the switch. But our fruit flinger doesn't fling fruit far enough to hit it, so we need an upgrade. For that, we need a fishing rod, an egg beater, and a ladle, creating the Peppermint Popper. Count Olaf gave us so much peppermint. We have like an infinite supply. Is this why he wants our money so badly? Did he buy this many peppermints? How many loans must he have taken out to afford this, and why?
To what end? To what end?
Now, we have an arcade shooter. Easily the worst part of the game. I did have fun, I did, but it's long and there are no checkpoints, so if you lose in the last round, which I did, you have to start over. Once it's finished, we are immediately in an altercation with Fernald, and now we're not. We appropriate the grammar books and make our way back to Aunt Josephine's. Once back at her house, a her-shaped hole connotes that she may have taken her own life, and even though a suicide note confirms it, it is filled with grammatical errors, those mistaking letters and words spelling out Curdled Cave. Now this section here is on one. According to this segment, this woman's house is massive and the storm is ripping it apart. Now, this segment's a bit buggy because parts of the floor are torn away by the wind, however they have no collision at all, so if we accidentally stand on one before it whips away, we will fall right through, but Klaus will have to carry on. Meanwhile, Sunny and Violet find an umbrella that will support the weight of both of them and allow them to glide. Serendipity. This goes on for ages. This house is a huge maze of hazards and it occupies a weird space because narratively it overstates its welcome. It's too big for what it is diegetically. However, from a gameplay perspective, it's actually pretty good platforming. I think the umbrella is a bit too forgiving for gliding, but it's engaging and mechanically it does not overstay its welcome. I could have used more of it, to be honest. Sunny runs off on her own to get a map and immediately gets hit by an Edwardian escoutoire.
Escape for desk.
Sunny avoids getting washed away by the floods before moonwalking her way to victory. With the map in hand, we liberate a boat to make her way to Curdled Cave to rescue Aunt Josephine. She fakes her death and wants to stay here, but we manage to convince her to leave by reminding her that realtors exist. But Josie's got to have her grammar books, and that's fine because we have some puzzle pieces to collect for the last secret room. Now, before we progress forward, we need to send Sunny to her peril one more time, this time sliding down a damp tunnel full of stalactites, mites, and whatever other variation I do not know of. This is the hardest one. Took the most amount of tries out of any minigame and I loved it. Yet horrified by the reality that Sunny gets impaled with every death. But Tim Curry assured me that that never happened. Thanks, our fella.
I'll pretend I didn't see that.
Sunny dances and the elevator rises. And we can make our way down to the bottom, where we kill some crabs, grab some, not all, off the books, and make our way back to the realtor sign for the final secret. We see some bananas here and that's some pretty subtle foreshadowing. We show Aunt Josephine the realtor sign and she lets out a scream so high-pitched it shatters the wall back down the elevator, so of course we gotta rush back. BRB. With the books in tow, we can make her escape, but the leeches can smell bananas off of Aunt Josephine, so we have to defend her in a wave survival game. After 3 waves, Count Olaf arrives to save the day, rescuing the Baudelaires from imminent death and leaving Aunt Josephine to her demise. Mr. Poe arrives just in time to see the rescue but not the death sentence and awards the Baudelaires back to Count Olaf, giving us the final level of this game. Count Olaf plans on marrying Violet, forcing her hand by kidnapping Sunny and hanging her aloft a tower, leaving only Klaus to rescue the younger sister. However, he cannot climb up on his own. Channeling everything he absorbed from his sister by osmosis, using a bicycle pump, a coil, and disgardening tool, he creates the horrifying hook.
What are those hooks?
This is another stealth segment, where we have to use the horrifying hook to scale the outside of the tower. Intermittently, we re-enter the tower and have to climb up the stairs while Fernald throws projectiles at us. Although now, when we exit the scale outside again, Fernald and the other henchpeople will stop trying to find us and instead drop barrels on us. Once we reach the top, Fernald challenges us to a boss fight. This is a doozy. Barrels will fall from the sky above you and you will have to evade them, or in my case, some of them. Once that is finished, Fernald will randomly open trapdoors, either throwing barrels from them or health. Eventually, he appears himself, leaving himself open and vulnerable to attacks. He repeats this process several times till his health is depleted, and we knock him down, presumably to his death. Sunny is rescued, and then Klaus tells her to go help Violet. Now, is this the appropriate response? Sunny is a baby and shouldn't be climbing down this tower on her own, but what the hell? She's done worse. Violet and Count Olaf have been married off screen, and in this final minigame we must use this refractive lens to create a laser to set the marriage certificate alight while Count Olaf and his henchpeople faff about on stage. Once they stop to pose, we need to burn the person holding the marriage certificate to do damage to it. However, some of the henchpeople will be holding a mirror, and if we hit them, we take damage. Now, proper to note, we are not aiming for the marriage certificate like you'd assume we would, we're aiming for the person. There is no hit detection on the certificate. Once we have burned half of the cert, Fernald, not dead, announces, as a pirate, a retaliation. Now a pirate ship set piece emerges and the hench people will appear with various sea themed props and they will protect Olaf, who is jumping in and out of trapdoors behind him. Once we hit Olaf, this damages the Surt and the hench people disappear and we are barraged with watermelons, which are wet inside, so that's your connection to the sea. This will repeat and the barrages will grow faster and more hench people will flood the stage. It is beautiful, it is messy, and half the time I did not know what I was doing. With the Surt destroyed, Count Olaf gets arrested and put in jail, being made to suffer the hardships he forced upon the Baudelaires. And then we get a cute story where Justice Strauss takes the Baudelaires in and they live happily ever after, except that as a bold-faced lie, Count Olaf has escaped and the children are still kept in anxiety perpetuum. The secrets we unlocked translates to clips of the 2004 film. But when this game came out, the movie hadn't been released yet. That's right, this game precedes the movie it's based on, giving stills and teasers for the upcoming film. So what about the A Series of Unfortunate Events game? I loved it. It's full of minigames and decent platforming, it's a relatively short experience, the minigames rarely repeat themselves, so they never occur frequently enough to become repetitive. It is a well-paced, fun few hours of gameplay. While the plot is wholly based on the film and very much abridged, it does not rely on you having watched the film or read the books to understand. The ending feels rather abrupt but memorable. While the game is about a series of unfortunate events, there is nothing wholeheartedly unfortunate about it. Thanks for watching and I'll talk to you.